All right, so let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is share my screen. And to do that, I need to share here. Okay, desktop two. Cool. All right, so everybody should see my Laser Map Maker projects um, desktop here. And yours might look completely different. Maybe there's no projects at all, and that's okay. First thing to notice here on the right side is the new project button. I'm going to do Astoria, Oregon. We're going to do a city map. And the reason we're going to do a city map is because we're going to show you what a lot of folks want to do and are good sellers if you're interested, or good gifts and stuff like that. So, Astoria, Oregon, project name, you can see it up here. And then we're going to choose our template. So we can do blank, we can do basic city map, or we can do one of these topography templates. We're going to choose the basic city map because we don't want to start from a blank canvas, not knowing anything. So let's create project, and it puts us into the studio. So this is a default of New York. This is just where the landing pad happens. That we still have to search for Astoria, Oregon. So I'm going to click the magnifying glass here, and I'm going to type in Astoria, Oregon, and click. And now all I need to do is hover over with my mouse and pan and zoom like that and get it in a location that I'm happy with. All right. So I'm trying to keep an eye on just making sure nobody else is going to come in here. Um, Now that I've found Astoria and I've got my roads, land, water, and roads here, I'm gonna click preview export. So we didn't touch anything really. We just found our spot on the map. We clicked a template and we found our spot on the map. On the left-hand side here, you can see that we have layers. So we have some choices, but you don't have to do anything because these are pre-picked. So you don't have to understand it or anything like that. And then on the right here, you can verify your layers. We're going to talk about them once we go into Lightburn. Um, this is it. So we can review it. We can look at it combined. There's our map. And now we'll click next. And we'll go, this is tiling. If I enabled tiling, this is what it would look like. You can do different kinds of tiles, but we're not going to do that today. Click next. And now we're at export. It shows you a layer summary. It's got roads cut, land and grave, land water. We'll talk about these in Lightburn a little bit. And you come down here and you click export. You confirm and you export. Okay. All right. So this is a pretty quick process, but uh, right at the screen here, we're like, well, where's my map, or where's my files, or where's, so if this little blurb right here says export is still processing, please wait for it to complete. So what this is it's an export page for this project. So we'll go back to this later, but what I want you to understand is every time you export under a certain project, it will land only in that project space. So you're not confused later on what exports are what. So here's our three files for just like a basic map for land, water, roads. And I am going to download that zip. So we're going to click output, and then I'll just call it Astoria map. We're going to save it to the desktop. And now we're done with Lazy Map Maker. I need to go open up Lightburn. Hope it doesn't just pop up on a different window. Oh, it did. Okay, here you go. So we have Lightburn here, and now we need to put the Astoria map in there. So we can go to this import file, import, and we should go to downloads. And of course, I made it difficult on myself here because it's a zipped file. So watch this. I'm gonna show you a visual. We save this to our desktop like this. There's the zip file. For a Mac, you double click on it. There might be a small, I think a slightly different process for Windows, but you'll probably know exactly how to do that. And now we've opened up the zip, and now we have this folder of items. I'm gonna double click on the folder, and now I can see my files. So basically basics file explorer stuff that you would do for pretty much anything else. I'll try to make room for both of these just so we can see. And here we go. So we have these files. I'm going to open up the Explorer. I'm trying to make this quick too, because this is somewhat irrelevant. We have an engrave file here. We have a cut file here and a cut file here. So I'm just going to bring one in at a time. So I'm just going to drag one at a time. The reason I'm not dragging all of them at the same time is if I did that, they would actually stack on top of each other. And if it just kind of makes it a mess. So now I'm going to close my File Explorer and we'll just make this big. And now we have three files that we actually exported. So I'm just going to bring these up here and here. So one thing you should note here is that this middle file is just going to be what we engrave on this cut file on the right side, right here. But we have some strange things like why is there this border around this middle piece here? Well, because we have a process for cutting and engraving, that's why these files are separate. But when we want to align these files, we need something to align them with. So imagine if we didn't have this alignment border here. If we didn't have that here, this is what we would get. And then how in the world are we going to make sure this fits right here the right way? So there's a little bit there. Um, so let's take a look at the first one. Let's take a look at, well, first, I don't see water. Well, that's because water is simply the full sheet underneath. So land and water are right here, and land stays, and water gets cut out of this layer. And then what we do is we come in and we put a layer beneath it that's solid. And so if you see all this area right here, that will be revealing this piece right here. So real quick, what we could do is be like, all right, let's, well, it actually is pretty irrelevant here. You can change the sizes to whatever you need the sizes to. So for us, if we were like, let's do 400, I shouldn't have done, sorry, user error. All right, so I need to get off this uh, rectangle tool and use the mouse. Select this whole thing, and now we can just make sure this puppy's locked. Come over here and just make it whatever size you want. So I'm going to say 350, and I'm doing this beforehand. It's kind of whatever order you want, but the reason I'm doing this, well, to show you just basically basic sizing stuff, but also because like this square, this water piece needs to be the same. So we just make both 350 in this case, right? So now we have our water, so we can visualize this. I'm going to go left to right because I think that's actually a better representation. We have our water piece, and then let's see if I can even draw on this thing. Okay. We have really showing off my light burn skills here. We have our land piece, and we have our roads piece. So the left-hand side's the bottom, this is the middle, and this is the top. So these are going to be individual jobs that we process on the laser. And basically this water is good to go. This land, I'm going to zoom in here real quick, make sure it's good to go. That looks really nice. That's going to cut really good. I don't see any flaws. So it looks like what we need to do next is take this engrave file that's going to go here. Let's make it a completely different color. That way it's on its own thing over here. By the way, you don't have to be an expert at Lightburn to do this. You can use other software, but the kind of concept remains the same. You're going to need to think along these lines. So if you zoom in here, you're going to see something. These lines are not filled, and that's simply a Lightburn thing. They default to line mode. So we're going to go over to line and click fill. Oh, what did I do here? Oh, I think I know what I did. So remember I told you about that alignment border that this thing comes with? Well, because it comes with that, and this is a fill, it actually does something. I'm going to show it to you like this. Watch. Oh, it's going to be hard to see actually. This line is like a, oh, actually, what is going on there? I might have done something earlier when I moved this. Let's see. Still does it. Hmm. Okay. So this actually is a great example of sometimes things don't exactly work out the way I think they're going to work out. Here, hold on. I'm going to do this just to see. Okay, interesting. So this is a great example of like, well, what do I do if there's some weird wonky, this is a Lightburn thing, but it's a great example. Maybe we click on this square here. I'm going to try something else. I'm going to try this square. Uh, that way we can concentrate on filling what we need to fill, which is that black. And as you can see, it's filled now. So there's a little nugget for you. I don't think I've ever had that problem before, but that's how you can maybe work through stuff like that. So now we have our engraved lines that we're going to put on the land, and we have this nice blue square that's around it, which we're going to use for alignment purposes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to group this together so that I can align with it. Because right now, if I move this piece or align, it's all like parsed into different pieces because we ungrouped it to fix that little issue. So I just wanted to share that. Um, so what we're going to do is take this square. We're going to Command G or Control G on your keyboard for Windows. And we're going, I think that's what it is. And we're going to, so that groups it. And then we're going to make sure this land piece is grouped. Looks like it's not. And this is, depending on the software you use, might not be grouped, but all softwares have a grouping function. So I'm going to group that. Now it's one piece. That's important. The reason that's important is because these two can now be clicked like that. And then we can go to this alignment tool right here and we can say align vertical center. And then we can click on this alignment tool and say align horizontal center. And now we kind of have like, whoa, what do we do with this blue line here? Well, what we could do real quick is go to this layer mode here and basically hide what's underneath. We can then click the blue line, Command U, which ungroups those two. And now we can click the blue line and delete it. And now we can show the land again. And now you have both. Now, for those of you, it looks like we actually have some. Okay, no, that is a. It's funny. I should know my own hometown, but anyways, it actually looks like I moved this possibly a little bit. I think I did when I was messing with it, but that's okay. So, uh, now we have land engrave and land cut. So that's what this file is for. This is like the middle file. Oh, I messed this up when I was doing that. Isn't that fun? Uh, so we have our water right here. We have our land engrave and land cut, and then we have our land cut or our roads cut, which funny enough is showing filled. So we're just going to change the color real quick. Make sure it's on line mode because it's an outline. We want all those pieces to fall out. So Now, in case you're wondering, why did we do this in the middle? Well, simply because now we can tell the laser. I can go to this black here, double click this layer, which is the engraved layer, and I can give it a speed and a power. And same thing with this outside color here. I can say, hey, laser, I want you to cut this. So I'm going to change the speed and the power for that color. So now you're just doing one big job for the land layer without having to do multiple. And mind you, there's a lot of techniques here, but this is the one that we like to share. And then finally, this is just a cut piece. So you're just literally going to apply a speed and a power from your laser that cuts through the material that you're trying to cut through. And now you've got that. So the order I would do this in is I would cut the water first, then I would cut the land, then I would glue the land while this is going and put it on top of the water. And then when this gets done cutting, I would take it out and glue it and put it on top of the land. And that's basically how you make a three-layered map for a basic city. So um, now we can go back to the studio here. I'm trying to see, let's see here. We got some chat here. Oh, yeah, thanks, Daniel. If you've used Lightburn, you probably know very well. Like there's some wonky, not even their fault. Just you have to. I'm not an expert. Way complicated on Lightburn. I open the files in Xtool Design. Yes, I actually do too. Xtool Studio. I just know there's a large number of folks that use Lightburn, and I wanted to make sure that we were demonstrating to probably the majority. But yeah, you can do this in Xtool and other platforms too. It's yeah. All right. Any questions? We can start diving in now to like the rest of the studio and we can slow down and kind of work our way through without maybe overwhelming. I can start back here at the dashboard. I am trying to find a better one of these days I'll figure Zoom out. Uh, if you raise your hand, if you have any questions, I'll unmute you or you can just put them in the chat. And if you have no questions, then I'll just continue. Now I can kind of go back through. We have, you know, a little over the 40 minutes or so where I can kind of break down some items. So at this point, it might have been confusing or you might have been like, whoa, okay, that even then I kind of chatted a little bit long. The idea is this: you create a project, you find your spot on the map, you preview the export, and once you have those steps down in Lightburn where you're like, group this together, align those two on top of each other, set the speed and power, then set the job and go. Once you get that process down, it's like that aha moment. And that's actually why we push for that over coming in here, creating a blank map, putting a bunch of features in place, trying to tinker and get it all right, because you will struggle with that if you're not really into like map making to begin with. And so you need a win. That's pretty much what we've discovered over about 2 years of doing this. We recommend that you get the win and make yourself a basic city map. So cool. So let's go ahead and check out the project stuff. Oh, looks like Bill. Let's go. Yes, Bill. I asked to unmute you, so let's see if it works.
Oh, unmute me.
Perfect.
When you created the map, the basic map like you just opened up, is there somewhere you can see that you selected what roads you selected for the road cut? Is that marked in some way? When I went in and looked at the road cut, I didn't see any marking on it of the layers.
Hmm. So you didn't see any. Oh, okay. So there wasn't any like there wasn't any road lines like I was showing.
Well, it wasn't marked that you had picked the major roads that, major roads wasn't marked, tertiary roads weren't marked. minor roads, pathways, alleys, nothing was marked, and yet it showed up on the map
Okay.
when the map was created.
Okay. And this is using the basic city map or just a blank
Right.
template?
Right. Using the basic city map and then going in and trying to find out where how you selected the major roads that show up,
Okay.
like roads cut.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Are you able to see my screen here?
Yes.
Is this what you're specifically speaking of? Like how did I come up with all of this?
Well, I don't see anything marked there. So, but you do have some roads, major roads that show up on your map, but I don't see anything that is selected.
Oh, okay. Great question. That so are you saying like this, Bill?
Right, exactly.
Oh, wow. Okay. No, this is great insight for me. What that is it gets it all of these items right here are like folders. Inside each of these folders is like files. That's the way I like to think of it. Whatever's on this left-hand panel, Bill, like total, all of this stuff is what's visualizing on the map. Meaning we don't have to select this for it to view on the map because we are already visualizing it. And I think I can help you further here. Let's let's say like we wanted somebody mentioned labels. So let's add a layer. Let's call it labels. Let's go to labels category and we'll just select a few of these. You can go in there if you want, look at them. This is where you would select what you want to be visualized on the map.
So
And
you've already done that. You've already done that.
correct.
Basic map.
So the basic city map that you clicked out when you created a project, that's actually a template we've created to help you get going.
Okay, perfect. That's what I wondered.
Got it. Okay, good. So when you're talking about selections here, it's simply for like styling, deleting, hiding. You can now watch this. I'm going to click one of these. I can edit this feature and it will change here, right? We might be able just to override. See that New York turn red there? That's because that specific feature is called major cities and regions for this label. So hopefully that helps. Here's something else that I think is pretty valuable because I do understand that someone might be like, well, how do I know which pieces to pick? Like look at all these labels for crying out loud. Or like the roads, like how did Laser Map Maker folks come up with all of these road network pieces and know which ones to choose? And what's important here is I actually like to work in a subtractive manner. And what that means is I'm going to show you because it's cooler than pretending like I know what I'm doing. Okay, so new project. We're going to do a blank test. We're going to do a blank template, create project. So there's nothing here. I'm going to go to the satellite mode here. I'm going to turn it off. There's nothing here. We're going to go to add layer. And for this, why don't we just say roads? I'm going to go to the roads network. I'm going to go to roadways. And then I have all these options here. There's actually outlines of roads too, but we use fills for the most part, and then we trace an outline. It's a long story, but if you don't do that, then you know you're usually in a worse spot. Just most people use this primary stuff here. So if I wanted to, I could select all because I don't know what a primary street is compared to a secondary, tertiary, horribly named street. And I'll tell you this, we got these from our map provider and we even made them a little nicer sounding, but it is very difficult to figure out how to really name these where you could really, and anybody could really just be like, oh, I know what that is. So let's create the layer here. And now we have a roads layer. But what if we were like, cool, I added all these roads, but I don't like these tiny roads. Well, you don't have to go through here and guess. you could use over here on the right side the toggle inspect mode. You click that, and now if you hover your mouse over parts of the map, actually, it seems, let me refresh the page. It's not actually highlighting the way I'm expecting it to. Maybe it always happens when you're showing, when you're demoing. There you go. So when we hover over things like this, you can see they highlight up. Well, that's subtractive for me, meaning if I'm like, okay, I'm hovering over this pink and I see the label at the bottom, it says roads, roadway, primary streets. I don't want those. So I'm gonna click on that. And I don't know if you noticed, but it said selected one feature right here. And it also pushed this style button up and it has one line selected. So I still don't have to go dig for it. But if I wanted to, I could open roads and you can see now this is selected. So I'm just going to click style here and then actually we wanted to delete it, right? So in this instance, we would just click the three dots and we could hit the trash can and delete it. So that's like a subtractive approach. If you're like, I don't know if I need all these things, but I'm going to add them and then I'm just going to use the toggle inspect mode on the right hand side and I'm going to hover and take what I don't want away and then I'll have my first layer. So we'll go back to the Astoria one though. So somebody asked, let's see here. Hopefully Abakar that answered your question too about, let's see. Oh, how well does this? Okay. So bathymetry is always the question. Um, bathymetry is going well and it will be out this year, but it is not out yet. We're really excited about it. We actually just had a huge meeting today about it, but it's not out yet, so you can't access it. You can access like topography, which is just terrain, but and we're going to start doing sessions for topography and a few other big features. And then when we get bathymetry out, I will be absolutely doing bathymetry sessions. So, good question on that. Stacy said, does it have to be a city or can it be a specific location, like Disney World? So, oh, that's why there's something going on with the internet or something. Let's see. Okay. So let's try it, Stacy. So I don't know. Let's see. Disney World. Well, there you go. So if you search Disney World as one of the examples, you're going to see a drop down, and this drop down looks like has some options for Florida specifically that have been like the hierarchy. If you're more specific, it could be let's try like Japan. I don't know if they'll have anything like that. Oh, Ecuador, Disney in Ecuador, and yeah, so there's options. So the answer is no, it's not like city oriented only. You can search for landmarks or other things and hopefully get where you need to be. So that was a good question on that. Um, what was I going to say here? So one thing, let's go back to the projects board. If and I think you might have just seen me do it, but I'm just gonna reiterate. If I wanted to go back to the Astoria export that we did earlier from the dashboard, I would just simply go to this tile for Astoria, which was the project name, and I would click it one time with my mouse. And here we are. So I'll close this for a sec. Any other exports will basically be in order. The latest on top, and you'll have a status and you'll be able to download them over and over again if you need to. And this is also where you can click in and open the studio. And like I said before, like this is just land, water, roads. This is like a basic beginner course. I don't want to overwhelm, but now we can get to the fun stuff of like, cool, I get the basic idea. I create a project, I search, I preview export, and then I start preparing my Lightburn files or Xtool Studio, whatever flavor. So now we can look at like what kind of things can we do. So maybe I'll just show you the left-hand panel first here. like we did before, you could add a layer. In the layer, you can add features and you can duplicate features. So you can have 3 layers with the same feature in them now. That used to not be the case. We'd highly recommend labels being in their own layer. Layers are files. So when we export, we're going to get for each layer exported, we're going to get a file. And that is what we will be able to understand better and use to tell our laser what to do. Each one of these is basically a layer for all of these map features. You can individually click into them and edit them, or you could do stuff like this. I could click 3 little dots on the layer. I could select all of them, and you'll see this style tool come up. You might have seen that before, as we just kind of showed before. And that only comes up if these match. So it's kind of a small detail, but these are all the same line type. So we allow a batch style here. There might be situations, and I'm going to show you. See, all these are selected, right? I'm going to go to a different layer. Now, these are different icons. Watch what happens to that button when I click this one. I'm going to add it to the list. 15 features selected, but now we can't style it because it has to be the same. So, little gotcha there if someone ever was wondering about that. This is a collapsible thing, so we can collapse all layers easily here and open them. And we can also select all features or deselect all features with that button here. One note that's very important is you do not, if you hide a layer, it does not mean you won't export that layer. Anything in this left panel will export. So if you don't want it, you have to delete it and get rid of it completely. Um, let me kind of explain one of the beauties of this. If you had a project and you were able, maybe you struggled, maybe you set it up even with the starter template and you added your finesse to it and you struggled and you're like, I don't know if I want to do that again. But you really like the style you created. At this point, you're pretty much able to duplicate that thing over and over and over again. So let's go back to the dashboard. You can click on the 3 little dots and you could duplicate that project. And it looks like it showed up here because that's the most recent. We can rename it, right? So I could say, maybe I'm gonna do a different part. I just call it Oregon for now. But basically what you did was you took all the styles and all the time and effort you put into it and you just created a clone. And what that means is maybe you want to go into this one and instead of doing Astoria, Oregon, you want to do Warrenton, Oregon. So you want the same style, but on a different part of Oregon. So just in my example here, there's a lot of things you could do there. By the way, some great fishing spots around here. Um, I'll go back to Astoria though. Oh, wrong one. Questions? Any questions on any of this stuff? I know it's a lot, and I know some of it's fast. When you say each layer is different file, are you saying we're doing something different with each layer? Like no cut versus cut score? Good question. So remember this light burn scenario here? We put technically 2 layers that we exported into this one unified file that we're just gonna like in a real case scenario here, we're going to take this, we'll pretend that we shrunk it this small, and we're gonna set our speed and power. See, black is engrave, but that's what we've decided. And then this blue here is cut. We're gonna tell the laser what speed and power for blue, which will be equivalent to what you would cut for your material. So to answer your question, these are 2 different exports that we combined later and told the laser, cut this, engrave that. So let me know if that makes sense. The reason why they're separate on here is actually a great point. So let's take a look. On roads cut, I'm going to hide everything else so you can see what this might look like. I'm going to turn off satellite view. That loves to be a part of this, apparently. And now we have this like, well, how does this work? Well, first of all, I want you to notice the borders are the same color as the roads. That's on purpose. That's to tell our tracing mechanism we want all of this to just outline. We don't want the thick black middles. We want the outlines of everything you see here. And the way we do that is these three little dots, and then we go to this settings tool right here, configure layer options. We're going to click that. And tracing strategy, since this was already set up, is outline. And you could also do fill, which is how like we would get like an engraved layer. So at the current state it's in, it's not an outline, but we're setting up the job to be exported as an outline. And then SVG is a pretty standard format. You can use some of these other ones if you want. PNG is great for labels. I would say better than SVG. Border color, that's on here. Why is that on here? Well, if we made the border this color, when we trace this to do that third layer, remember this layer right here. This is going right on top of that land cut piece. It's all cut out. If we didn't have a black border on here that matched our features that are black, this would not weld together. Oh, can't zoom like that. We could not weld that together because it's two different colors. So our tracing mechanism will cut it off, and then you'll have to delete 1,000 nodes. So actually, a big thing that Laser Map Maker solved was borders. Borders are very helpful for you being able to just take things out of the laser without having a ton of pieces. And so let's turn this back to black. And that's kind of how that works. Now watch this. Let's turn this off. Land engrave. We're going to turn that on or just view it. You'll see the borders are white. You're like, well, why aren't they black? Well, because this is a fill. And what you see is what you're going to get. These thick black lines, that is what we want because we're doing an engrave. So most people will understand that. This is an engrave. So we're not going to run an outline on this. So if you go to the three little dots, go to the settings tool, you'll see the tracing strategy is fill. We just want what we see here in a high definition SVG. And the reason that this border is white is because I don't really want to waste time engraving. Watch this. I'll show you what happens. If we don't have a border, now we have this whole border to engrave. When guess what? It's going to be there's another border from the roads cut, the top piece that's going to cover that same thickness, unless you set it to a different thickness. But we don't want to waste our time engraving stuff that we don't need to engrave. So that's why we put a white border here, is just basically to overlay those black lines. And then this is going to basically, it'll show up exactly like that engraved piece. And that's it. That's how you differentiate between the what's going to cut, what's going to engrave. And we do have some pretty cool things coming for score. So center line stuff. Daniel, thanks. When you say, okay, do y'all have an expected time frame for having bathymetrics? Might as well just have a bathymetry session. It's like always asked. Um, my timeline for bathymetry in 2026 is as soon as possible. I know that's very political, but uh, it's kind of like if you were to ask me what I do on the day to day, it would be like I push bathymetry. And it's funny to say because we do a lot of other things, but my excitement in Laser Map Maker at this point is getting bathymetry to the users. So I want it probably just as bad as you do, and I cannot wait until we get a solution out there, and we are doing well on that. So it's I wish I could tell you what day, what month, but at this point, I don't think it would be wise. So someone said this. So as you build your layers, you delete the borders for all but the first layers of your map. Oh, Bill, bathymetry is if you're asking about what that is, that's just hydrography. It's like the water tables. You might have seen water depths be shown uh, in laser cutting before. At 0, 10 feet, 20 feet, whatever it is for like a lake or something like that. Lake topology, Brian. Yeah. All all the lake maps you see. Yeah. Okay, I don't know if I quite understand, Lisa. You saying you build all the layers, you delete the borders for all but the first layer of the maps. That's not what I'm saying. And here, let me show you this. Maybe I can help. Oh, we made it all small. Isn't that funny? Let's lock this back. 350. The borders help you align, I think. Yes. There's alignment borders, and then there's the borders that we were just talking about, were these ones. The reason for these borders, I'm going to hide this again and show you. Actually, what am I doing? I can just show you here. So everyone imagine with me that you cut this out on the laser and you cut it out on a nice piece of Baltic birch. We all love Baltic birch, right? Um, I like the way it smells, I like the way it looks. So if you cut this out on the laser, because it doesn't happen for everything, because it does depend on what you select, but for the most part, you can do things like this and pull that city roads cut piece off of the laser bed in one piece. If you don't have that welded border we made on the outside, it's a bunch of pieces. It could be a bunch of pieces. Some things are nicer than others. Like this one's pretty good. I probably could do it without a border, but you're still dealing with alignment and things, so it's kind of necessary and nice. So, hope that answered the questions here. The program auto creates the borders needed for each layer. Yes, if you use like the basic city map like we're talking about, it is already built in. You do not need to mess with the borders. You don't need to mess with tracing, anything like that. I would highly suggest you don't. You know what? I would absolutely love if folks were done with this kind of session, could create a project. You just make a small map. Like go get one sheet of wood or whatever you want to do and just make a small map. Make a 5 inch by 5 inch square just to sample, just to do it. And that's where I started, and that's why I'm vetting for that. And then send it to me. Send it account or support at lasermapmaker.com. I'm the one who answers those calls on support. So I would love to hear from, or just put it on Facebook. Hey, this session really helped me out. I made my first map, and or I'm missing a few steps. I don't understand this. You can send those messages too, and I will try to help. Let's see here. Can you change the frame size? Great question. So let's go play around here. We have about 20 minutes left, and let's see what else we can do here. We didn't really touch yet on the right-hand side. So I'm going to show you, you can save projects. So as you're going, it's always good to save. Um, you can learn. There's a learn center. There's a toggle full screen mode. Sometimes that's nice just to be able to not have so much going on. You can lock the map so you don't actually bump it. You can do the toggle inspect mode. Probably my favorite mode, kind of toggle thing. Like you can highlight these features and see what they are very easily. So really cool. Satellite overlay. Why is this important? Well, you might be like, hey, I live here. Right there. Right there. I need this. And then you can literally come back here, turn off the satellite, and you're like, okay, I'm positioned. So sometimes it's just nice to have that satellite in place. Trying to keep an eye on the chat here too. I am going to answer the frame size question. So let's go. We all know what search is now, if we didn't before. Latitude, longitude, those you can put those values in and click the check marks and it'll move you to that location. Vice versa, it'll tell you where you're at, right? It'll give you the latitude and longitude for wherever you're zooming and panning. All right. And then we have a zoom tool here. If you don't want to use your mouse, you can use these buttons. There is a rotate tool, so you can be like, ah, I want this angle. Or maybe you're doing a shape and you want something else. So I'm going to click this back to true north. That's the center arrow. Let's go to scale. This is highly used in our software. So the reason that scale is highly used is because right now we're at a normal map scale. And I'm going to turn these on. I'm going to zoom out. And it is pretty, like you can see right here, it's like boop, we lose some stuff. And you know what? Just to make this a little bit easier, I'm going to go to roads cut. I'm going to make these roads just a tad thinner. So we're going to go through line width. I'm just going to turn that down a little less noisy. And that looks pretty good. But like, what if I wanted it a little further out? And then, oop, I lose it all. Well, that's where map scale comes in handy. You could turn this up, and honestly, I usually just turn it up all the way. Now you see how far out I'm zoomed. I'm going to zoom back in, and we're way far out, and look how much detail we've just gathered. So it might be like I want to be right here or something, but we couldn't get that level of detail at that zoom level before until we turned scale up. So super important for like larger projects, especially. And that is a great tool. So please use that. Any kind of detail oriented stuff you do. Map shape. So maybe you want a hexagon. Maybe you want an octagon or a star or a heart. Check this out. Maybe you want a heart, but you're like, New York's pointing the wrong way or this peninsula is. You can go to this rotate tool we just talked about and rotate it. Maybe you want it positioned a certain way on the shape. I don't know. I'm going back to true north. Or you can say, you know, in this case, we are doing New York. So we could say, we could take the state shape and do that or something. I don't know. You can do all sorts of stuff. Um, and then let's go back to the geometric shapes and go to square and rectangle. You can do like circle if you want, stuff like that. But notice like all the borders apply. So it just makes it very easy for you to do. And then let's say real quick, I'm going to stay on square. Somebody had asked about the frame size. Go down to this bottom one here that says aspect ratio. And you'll see right now it's at 1:1. You can click these quick buttons here and they'll change different aspects. And then you're like, well, I can't even see over there. Oh, get this thing out of the way. You could just do that if you want. You can toggle full mode, get it exactly how you want it. And then another tip is let's say you go to Hobby Lobby or one Walmart or whatever, and they're selling frames, and you're like, oh, I have a bunch of 10 by 12s. Just come in here, put in 10, and put in 12 on both of those sides. There's your aspect. And guess what? You can switch right here in the middle. Which way do you want it? So then you can take this and know it's not going to be in inches or millimeters. But once you have the aspect, it's you can go into any program and scale it to, lock it and scale it to 10 inches or scale it to 12 inches. So that is how you can change frame size. And I might have misunderstood that question, but this is also the size in general of the frame that you change the aspect on. You can make it as wide as the screen as you're on. So the bigger the screen, the better. I wouldn't recommend doing this on a teeny tiny laptop. And then you can also just hone in exactly where you want. Maybe you just don't want all that noise. Uh, so it's really up to you. There's a lot of options there. That is the aspect ratio tool. So we have quite a bit here. Do we have markers or pins? We we don't have those. We are working on that actually. That is very important. We are working on that and a few other things. Like we want you to be able to put like your name on the frame, or I'm sorry, Astoria, Oregon, or New York on the frame and have it weld to the frame. And when you export, it's just ready, like those kinds of things. So we are working to make those particulars happen. Uh, where we call home, yeah, where we call home like a heart or just a home icon. Yeah, that's that's all good. Those are really good things. It would be for our reference as we eyeball the area and make sure everything is in. Oh, okay. Great point. So you could pin something so you could kind of move it around and get it all, you know, centered and everything like that. Yeah, that makes sense. Understandable. So we've touched on those tools on the side. We've touched on just like the basics of like what this layers panel is, and so it looks like I have some lines selected. I'm just going to use this nice feature selector to select and then deselect everything. I'm going to spend, let's see, adding a layer. So this will create another layer as you do that. So you can add a layer. You can choose from categories like we talked about, topography, boundaries, and then you can create it. Or I could go into a current layer, click this little pencil, and edit the layer. So maybe you want to add more than that was there. You can do that. So you can go in and take a look around. You won't put a duplicate in the same layer because it doesn't let you do that. So whatever is available means we haven't clicked. Maybe you're like, I know there's an off ramp there and it's not showing on the roads. I'm going to click major on ramps and off ramps roads. That's probably going to fix my problem. So I'm going to update the layer. I don't know if there is any. We could test this theory. Major on and off ramps right here and see if there is any. I don't think there is. We have to go somewhere else maybe. But oh, oh, there we go. See the red? So right there, just that little spot. We're missing some stuff because you want to connect bridges and roads and stuff. So, like I said before, I think the best method if you're going to get into like going into a blank canvas is subtractive, where you're going to use the toggle inspect mode, hover over things. You can add features and take them away. Uh, but we do not recommend doing that at first. Just create your project, search your spot on the map, preview, export, and then go from there. You're always welcome to ask our Facebook group for help on this too. You can ask our support chat. Facebook is amazing. There's just the people in our group I'm very thankful for. I'm really, really thankful for them. Can you explain how topography layer works? Okay, let's see. We've got 10 minutes. If there's no burning questions, I don't see why not. We could do that. Hadn't prepared for that, but I'll give you like a maybe 5 minute overview. Topography is hard, but I made my first topographical map through Laser Map Maker. So let me tell you, I solved my own problem, and I that anybody can do it here. There's maybe a little bit to understand, but that's kind of anything. So let's go back. I don't see any hands raised or anybody asking any crazy questions here. Let's go back. Let's do it. So let's go to a new project, and I'll just say call it Topo. And see here, we've got fine, medium, and coarse topography. Just like the city template, we've set up topography layers. We're going to choose coarse. That's the lowest amount of detail. So more space in between shells for elevation. The finer you go, the more layers. Like fine, I think it's like 30 layers. And I have a video on that. We're going to create the project and then you'll see this. So immediately I'm going to turn off satellite view. So now you can see the separated layers. These are all different elevations using the same topography feature over and over and over again. Keep in mind on the left-hand side here, the bottom says 500 meters and the top says 4,500 meters. That means we're building our topographical layers from top to bottom, bottom to top, sorry, just like we would in real life. And this goes for the basic city map too. It's the same process. So let me open one of these up and show you. 500 meters, land topography, all elevation contour fills. That's the name of the feature. It's the name of the feature here, 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 all of these. Same feature used over and over and over again. We're going to click on one just to look at it. There's an elevation range, and it's a very simple process that I've used, which is basically like set your bottom 500 and then your top for the topography doesn't matter. Once we get into bathymetry, that will come into play. You can leave that max. Then we come down here and we make the color. Let me show you why we make a color. I'm going to do one just for you. Add layer, land, topography, fills, create. That's what it looks like in the beginning. That's why we add these layers for you and show you. But watch this. Layer. We're going to set the shelf at 5. I can't do it. So 510 or 490 is fine. We're going to set that shelf, meaning that's the layer we want to do. Um, don't mind all this other stuff. We're just going to completely obliterate it. It's like we're going to blow it all up except for that shelf by changing the color. So we're going to say override, click a color that actually matters. And you'll see here, it's like, whoa, this is a solid object. Well, that's because the bottom shelf, that's what it would be. So let's go up a little bit here. Perfect. So this would be like that green might be like a full piece underneath. And then this orange is the next, like if you were to go up 900 feet in elevation, that's what it would look like at that point. And then we just build our layers from there. So then we would exit out of this, we would add another layer and do the same process and we would change the shelf. And see how it climbs in like that all the way. And so what we're going to do here real quick is delete this. And I'm going to preview export so you can see firsthand what that might look like. This is a more of an advanced course. I would not recommend this to anybody starting out, but I do want to teach this class. So you'll see from the left to the right here on the preview export, you can see if you watch the layers how it gets smaller. And this is all set up by just setting that shelf, blowing up the rest of that elevation with the color, and then moving on. And then you build bottom to top. There's a video on this. Actually, I can go try to find it. Is there? I might be able to. Yeah, there I am. This is from scratch. So if you want to have fun and eat some popcorn and watch that sometime, that's from scratch. And you more than likely that this is like if you didn't have the templates. So I don't really recommend it, but if you want to, since you asked about it, there you go. You got topography. If as you can see here on the left, it'd be like this would be our first layer, which would be like equivalent to maybe water, which isn't water, but in the sense of like it's your bottom piece, like just like the city map. And then we're just basically stacking. And then you might ask, well, how in the world do we stack this island perfectly in its right spot? Anybody guess? I'll give you 15 seconds to put something in the comments. How would you do that? How would you make that island be in that perfect spot? How would we lift it off the laser? Better question. How do we lift that off the laser and make sure it's transplanted onto this one, this piece? The cutout, use negative space. These are all good answers. They're not what I would say are right answers, but they're good. So here's how you do it. We put a piece of tape. I don't know what TSBD is. That could be tape. You put a piece of tape across from the border somewhere all over that island, and you put a piece of tape. Yeah, maybe taps would work. I wouldn't recommend. I don't know if I would do that, but put a piece of tape on that puppy. I actually do it in the video, and take it off. Before you take that thing off the laser, label it. 500 meters, 1,000 meters, whatever that one is, label it on the tape and make sure your tape is covering the island so that it picks it up with the border. And that way, when you go to set that land on top of the next piece, you just use your border as a frame and then you glue it down. I use something fast like super glue or something else, E6000 or something. That's semi fast. Peel that tape off the border, and then you're like this border, you just throw away. You wouldn't use it. This border, you would use because why? It's attached to the land. So this border is like a you have to use it. So these first three, this one touches the border, this one touches the border, this one touches the border. All of these are going to stay. They're the bottom pieces, and then there stops being a border. So like this one, put tape over all of those floating pieces in the middle to that frame after you cut it. Then lift it out and you can set it aside, label it. You can do all that work later. You have to do it right that second either. Just label the right elevations that you're exporting, and there you go. Now here's something else I want you all to know. This is for a specific mountain range. So if you look here, I'm going to show you one more time. We have a min and a max. That means watch this. See how that min and max changed? Or what if I go over here? You see the elevation drop? Now we're at 1400 meters for this space for what we're hovering over. This is all I have access to. So check this out. If I go back, all of these layers I built for this course uh, topography template, none of these above the max elevation will do anything. So if we preview this export, you can still use the template, but just know that if there isn't any obviously elevation, you're not we've parameterized what we want here. So as you can see, just the first two. After that, it's none of these work. And that's normal. And what I would do is delete them. If you want to use like a template like this to start and you don't want to do a big mountain range like this, then just know that whatever your top layer is, like this one's 4,400, so we went all the way up. But if it's way over here, we only need to go to 1,500 meters. So this is kind of a longer discussion, but please watch the video. It's not something to bog yourself down with. There will be sessions on this specifically in the future that I'm going to prepare for and not just kind of shotgun like some when somebody asked me here. But if you ever have any cool tricks, like somebody mentioned tabs, do the tabs and show people on our Facebook page. I would appreciate that. That's a new technique that I haven't even really considered. Um, I use tape. I don't know. It just seems to work pretty easily for me or well. But there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat, and they're all great. So please share any kind of stuff like that that you have that you think could be helpful to other folks, and then I would be greatly appreciating that. We are going to do topographical stuff in the near future here. This is our third live session for beginners. So we're just getting this thing off the ground, and then I'm gonna start adding more sessions. So I would love to show tiling more in depth. Tiling tiling is the thing that we saw in the preview export here. So one thing cool about tiling is it breaks up the map. So if you have a 2 foot by 2 foot bed and you're doing squares like tiles, like let's just go to tiles. Each one of these, and this is a bad example because the frame's still on, so please ignore, but each one of these squares here could be uh it's It's the full bed of your laser. So if you wanted to put something big together, and if you wanted to like make the border like super thin so you can pick these pieces up, you can do that too. So you'd scroll down, update the preview. You just make thinner borders. These thick ones are the ones that we did in the studio. You can remove those. And by the way, it's a different lesson. What is the best way to learn the program? I think the best absolute thing you can do is make a city map. So, last thing I'll leave you with, create a project, use basic city map, create it, search your spot on the map, get it to how you want it, zoom, pan, preview. Can you, anybody in the comments not a subscriber? Can you let me know? Then we're going to click next and we're going to export. This is how you learn Laser Map Maker. You need to do this without getting stuck on the layers and features. So you just found out yesterday it existed. Well, thank you. That's so cool. And you're here. That's awesome. So if you are not currently a subscriber, we do have it's a freemium plan now. There's 3 credits. So you can make what we're doing here with just a free plan. You get 3 credits. So without having to subscribe. So you can do this very basic thing here. That's it. That's pretty much all this is create a project, search your spot on the map, preview export, bring your files into Lightburn or bring your files into Xtool Studio or Adobe. And we do have, I'll give you one more thing here. Let's do this. Laser Map Maker. We do have this. Um, share the link here. It's how to work with Laser Map Maker files in Lightburn. So for those of you who are just Lightburn specific, this might be useful for you, but I don't think it's anything we didn't cover today. Anybody have any questions? I think we're wrapping it up. We're gonna head out, have a good weekend, build a couple maps. Um, if you have anything, now's the time. Thanks for creating the basic map project. Oh yeah, no problem, Bill. That's we want it to be easy. The whole point of Laser Map Maker is because map making is actually pretty darn hard. And we understand that because that was the reality. And now it's really not. Now we're trying to break down those doors and make it easier. So, but yeah, thanks everyone for coming. And please message us, support@lasermapmaker.com. If you have anything that you want to share privately about what you're struggling with on this stuff or uh, what have you. So we're all ears. You know, it's a small business and we're trying to grow and make sure everyone here is happy. And we definitely want folks that pay for a subscription to be able to make maps. So if everyone here, or some people have had it for a subscription for a while and have struggled, we are really glad you're here because that is not what we would like. Is we want our people to make maps and feel good about it. So, yes, I can't wait for bathymetry either. Uh, I'm gonna end the session. Thank you all for coming, and we'll get a replay up probably in the next day, uh, so you can rewatch it. So we'll have that on YouTube, and I would highly suggest that you follow the Laser Map Maker. Put that in there real quick, actually. Those of you who don't, oh, Laser Map Maker YouTube. Just in case you want to, here's the link to the homepage of Laser Map Maker. I would subscribe. We're going to have a lot more sessions. So it's a really good way for you to be on like get the alerts. Even if you miss a session, but maybe it's a different session. Maybe it's on something else and you can watch it. So I'd really appreciate it. That way we can you know, kind of rely on just telling folks that sign up for YouTube instead of blasting on Facebook and socials and emails and um, stuff like that. So, well, thank you, everybody. Facebook page seems super helpful. Oh, yes, thank you. Yes, please ask your questions. And we do not allow toxic people in our group, so we do monitor that. And I've been very pleasantly surprised. It's usually pretty good. I don't really see much that makes me have to worry, so to speak, or have some of the problems that I hear other laser groups are having. So, well, have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll see you next time.